talk about two websites that I've created and maintained over the years. One is the WA7BNM contest calendar, and the other one is the 3830scores.com site for people to post their score rumors of contests. So these are both contest orienting. I'll give you just a really brief background about my history in ham radio. The first 20 plus years of it, there not much happened. In 1963, I was originally licensed in the non-renewable license for novices, 1 year, that was it. And I managed to get through most of that year without owning a transmitter. So only at the end did I actually get on the air. And so I didn't get much further than the 5 words per minute it took to be a novice in those years. So I decided I wanted to have a general license, which required going to an FCC field office. I lived on the coast of Oregon at the time. That's why I have a 7 call sign, and required a trip to Portland, where the FCC field office was, which is about 200 miles from where I lived. So my mother put me on the bus. My uncle lived in Portland. And the first couple of times, when they turned on the good old code at 13 words per minute, it sounded like 50 words per minute to me. So I flunked the receiving test a couple of times. And on the third time, which was the last time my mother said she would send me, I managed to pass the receiving test and got my general license, and then operated sporadically in high school, lived in a horrible location, lots of land, horrible location, and wasn't on the air much for 20 some years. So in 1990, I got back on the air, bought a modern transceiver, had a vertical antenna on my roof here in Los Angeles, and it happened to be a great time for 10 meters. And I originally got on to work DX, but soon sort of spent all my time doing contesting. So that's how I got involved in contesting. So the contest calendar, I got started accidentally. In 1995, after joining the Southern California Contest Club, which is sort of the contest club that covers Southern California, I guess I would tell you mistakenly and looking backwards, but volunteered to be a newsletter editor. And for anyone who's been a newsletter editor, you know that's a thankless task, but I was still young and naive and willing to do those things. So on the back of the newsletter, there had been historically a contest calendar, and it was done by Don W6EEN, which was a well-known contest station in Southern California, out in the 29 Palms area. And the editor before me was Mark W6OTU, now N5OT. He had moved to Oklahoma. That's how I became editor. And when I asked Don about could he continue doing this calendar, there really wasn't a lot to it, just a few contests. He said, no, he'd really done that as a favor to Mark, and he didn't really want to have to do it anymore. So I went, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll figure out how to get some calendar information. You have to remember in 1995, you couldn't look on the web and find these things. So you looked in QST or you looked in CQ magazine, and they had some calendar contest information, not a lot, but some. So I sort of used that. So the first calendar I ever did was the August 1995 issue of Score, which was the name of the newsletter. Then in 1996, I published it for the first time on the web. I finally, at that point, had an email and had a web presence, not much of one, but a web presence, and published it for the first time. If you go back on the Wayback Machine, which is a site that records very old websites, you can actually find it there. But in 1998 is when it really started being on the web. And so I will share my screen so we can go to this. And so we can see that okay, I hope. So this is the home page. homepage of the calendar. For a long time, it was under my hornicopia.com domain name, was like hornicopia.com/contestcal or something like that. There's still a few diehards who have never realized that it moved to contestcalendar.com quite a while ago now. But anyway, here's the calendar. And I'm going to sort of walk through it and talk about what it is. So the whole idea of the calendar is to contain the contest information in a database so that the information's there about the contests and then when they occur. And it's really a matter of how you want to organize that information and present it to people. So I'm going to sort of skip around here, but I'm going to go to the 8-day calendar first. 8-day calendar is a continuous 8 days. So it goes the previous day. So this is in UTC. So the previous day in UTC indeed was Wednesday, the August 10th. We're now on Thursday, August 11th. And the top part of it is a graphical display. So it shows you how the times of the calendar, how the times of the contests relate to each other. So you can see where they overlap or where there are gaps or whatever. And, you know, I didn't invent this view. Somebody suggested to me, but it seems to be a popular view. And then below that is the detail of each of these contests. And you can click on one of these to jump to it, for instance. So A1 Club is a club in Japan. They have a weekly contest, and it tells you some basic information. What the focus of the contest is. This happens to be a worldwide contest. Anybody can participate. Not all contests are that way. Some have a limited geographic area, and who can participate. So that means you are recognized for participating, as opposed to, yes, you can make a QSO somebody, as opposed to, yes, you get sort of to be in the results. What the mode or modes are, what bands they consist of, what the operating classes are. This is a simple one with only single op. Let's go down to something more interesting. They're all, you know, here's EACW. So that's a Spanish monthly contest where you can be, you're a member of EACW, which is a Spanish club, tells you what the exchange is, RST plus member number plus a nickname if you're a non-member, so forth, what you do, how often you can work stations, once per band per mode, once only, like ARL sweepstakes is that way, how many points you get for a QSO, what the multipliers are, how a total score is calculated, what the deadline for submitting a log is, and an email address if they accept email logs, a web link for uploading logs. Many contest sponsors have moved away from email as a means of submitting logs and gone to web uploads. There's a lot of advantages to that. Or paper logs, a mailing address for those. And you can see in this case, it doesn't, EACW meeting doesn't accept emailed logs or mailed paper logs, but has a log upload, and then finally a link for the rules. So it makes it easy for you to go directly, depending on how good your connection is, to the EACW, in this case, website to see for yourself any other detail. Because even though there's a fair number of details here, it's still a limited number. So the whole idea of the 8-day calendar is to show you all the contests in the next 8 days. North American Meteor Scatter Sprint is a brand new contest being held for the first time starting on the 12th. There's a lot of weekly contests now. There used to be almost zero weekly contests, but weekly contests have become quite popular. Anyway, example of a state QSO party, the Maryland DC QSO party, a little more complex rules, a lot more classes, bonus points, more complex multiplier structures, so on and so forth. So that's the idea behind the 8-day calendar. Up at the top of the 8-day calendar, you'll see that you can look at the previous 8 days. So that was last week, or you can look at the next week's in the same detail if you want to look ahead. I've had a request lately, somebody would like to look further ahead, and I'm thinking about how to implement that. Then if you're used to these kind of symbols up here, you'll see there's an RSS feed that indeed some people use on their websites to get a basic calendar. It basically says, here's the name of the calendar, here's the name of the contest, and here's the time period, date and time period of the contest. There's a link to produce a iCal calendar, and there's a link to do a Google calendar. So there's various ways you can get calendar information. I want to skip back to the home page for a second, because the other way you can get information, and you can subscribe to Twitter. So I actually have a Twitter account that's really a one-way. I just publish information on it. I never actually read people's responses. So, but one of the things you can do is you can get an email calendar, and the email calendar is essentially information that appears on the 8-day calendar, same kind of detail, but it's in the form of an email, designed, formatted, fixed formatting, all that information. Then if you scroll down far enough, it'll tell you, if I get there, what next week's contests are in just the name of the contest and the dates. And then finally, a summary of all the log submittal deadlines for all the contests where the submittal deadline hasn't expired yet. So in the Twitter version, you just get a tweet that consists of the name of the contest, the time periods, dates of the contest, and a link you can click on to give you the kind of detail you saw on the 8-day calendar. Now, because there are so many weekly contests, I recently made a 5-week calendar. And that's what this view is. So the problem with the 8-day is it's filled with things that happen every week. And you'll see that in the 12-month in a moment. So the top of this are nothing but weekly contests that have been pulled out and shown on themselves. So here's August 8th through August 12th. You can see how many weekly contests there are. These contests occur every single week. Then after that are the remaining contests that are either monthly contests or annual contests or semi-annual, whatever they are, of what their dates and times are. So not all of them are on weekends. The NAQCC CW Sprint is a monthly contest held during the week. It was held essentially last night, our time. And so you get 5 weeks of these. So that's the idea behind the 5-week calendar, is to make it a little more easy for people to see what contests are available. Any questions? I'm going to go on then. So 12-month, go ahead. So 12-month, you can see, starts with the month before the current one, in this case, July of 2022, and goes through June of 2023 in this case. So it's a rolling 12-month. And you can see there's just tons of contests on it. So because of all the weekly contests repeating themselves all the time, it's sort of a busy calendar and hard to see. So I added the option of hiding all the weekly calendars. So now it gets a little more use. Still a lot of contests. I had somebody comment to me that they liked that the calendar showed all these contests because they would print it out and show it to their wife and say, look, I really don't participate in that many contests. Look how many contests there are, and I really don't participate in that many of these. So even though there's a lot, sometimes people find this useful. And at the end, I'll talk about a customized view. Then the other thing I've done is a perpetual calendar. And the idea behind the perpetual calendar is you have people that want to plan their contest activity in advance. So people who go on contest expeditions, they want to know, okay, when is CQ Worldwide CW contest in 2024? So the idea behind this calendar is it lists all of the contests for which dates are predictable in the future. So typical things are like the second full weekend in October, the last full weekend in September, those kinds of rules it applies, the Monday after Easter. So from that, it can predict, and it can go out to 2031, in this case, 10 years worth. And so you can see, geez, in 2031, the NAQP, I'm going to find it, North American QSO Party's SSB contest will be on January 18th. Okay, you probably don't care about 2031 at the moment, but that's the idea behind the perpetual calendar, is that you can see out into the future for those that are there. I have some mode or power specific ones, CW and QRP. They need to be updated because they are produced with a manual configuration, which is out of date. It looks just like this, but just lists a contest that has a CW mode as an option in it, or a QRP power mode as an option. May not be exclusively QRP, maybe high, low, and QRP, or maybe exclusive. Log due dates is a summary of the due dates. And this is an order by due date. So we had a lot of contests that were due August 10th. And the first week's worth are in red, and then it sort of calms down. So it lists all the contests that have already occurred, but who gives you the log due dates and submission information. So, can you email it? You post it to a website? Can I mail it? Whatever you want to do. And if you'd rather, you can sort it by contest by clicking on that, and you get them in alphabetical order. For people who like historical information, there's the historical version. So the historical version goes backwards in time. So it can go back to 2005. It's the limit of the information in the database. It's the same view as the 12-month calendar, but it really is January through December. It's not a rolling 12 months. So for whatever year you pick, you can view all the entries on the calendar then. So if we went back to 2005, we'd see the calendar look considerably shorter than what it does currently. Still a lot of contests, but nothing like current. If you want to find information about a specific contest, you can go to the alphabetical view. So this lists them all alphabetically. So if we wanted to look at the ARL September VHF contest, we click on the little plus, and it brings up all the information you saw on the 8-day calendar. Plus it tells you the future dates if they're predictable, and it tells you the historical dates of them. The little plus is available on all the you'll notice that it is available like on the 12-month calendar. So you can always go to this. Get this to behave. There we go. So on any one, you can always click on this and get the information about it. And then finally, we have customize. So the idea being customized is that there are actually 458 active contests on the calendar, which is probably more than anybody is interested in. And people have different interests. Some people are interested in VHF contests. Some people are interested in state QSO parties. Some people are interested in DX contests, all over the place. So the idea behind this is you get to make yourself a custom calendar. What contests do you want to see on the calendar? So it starts off with all of the contests checked. So it just depends which is easier, to uncheck the ones you don't want or to check the ones you do want. So you can go to uncheck all and then just check, I'm interested in ARL DX contest, CW and DX, and, work your way through these to check them off. And down at the bottom, you click save. And what it does is it saves a cookie on the computer you're on the browser you are on. that contains the information you're interested in. So when you look at the 12-month calendar or the 8-day calendar, you get a custom view that only includes those contests you've said, I want to look at in a custom view. And you have the option, if you have a custom view turned on, of going to the full calendar. So you can toggle between the full or the custom view. And the default is if a new contest gets added, every once in a while it's still being added. If a new contest gets added, it'll automatically add it to your custom view. And then you can say, oh, I don't want to see this. And I'll go to my custom view and turn it off. And then the final is really not so much about contest information, but it's about the fact that we use the Cabrillo format for submitting logs for contests. And one of the questions always is, there's a field in the log header called contest : and what that field value is the name of the contest. And it's a way to identify this log belongs to this contest. So if you look at the definition of Cabrillo logs, the format definition on the WWROF, that's the Worldwide Radio Operators Foundation website. They now maintain the Cabrillo standard. There's a few contests listed, mainly ARL and CQ contests, but this is a more comprehensive listing that went to a fair amount of work to confirm which each of the contest managers what the name of the contest should be that should appear in the log. So I think that's pretty much the contest calendar. So questions?
Bruce, I have a question.
Sure.
It's really a suggestion. I'm not a great contester, and sometimes I get on and they're running 2 or 3 contests on the weekend, maybe 2 or 3 of them in Europe. And I hear test.
Yes. You went away.
I apologize. I have a bandwidth issue here. Sometimes I hear TST. I have a hard time figuring out which contests they're in. When you have down there, you know, what the exchange is, could you put a line in where people put what the call will be, like test Stu Perry, SP for the Stu Perry or whatever, so that there's sort of a standardization, people pick up a standardization of what contest they're contesting in, so you can tell one from the other when you pick them up on a scope?
Yeah, so here's another use of this part of the 8-day calendar, because you can say, geez, I'm on here. I realize this is sort of fine, but there really are 24 1-hour divisions in this. The major divisions here are every 6 hours. You can say, geez, I'm on here at this time. What contests might these be? So that's one way, but I realize that doesn't help you when there are multiples. So it's possible some contests specify in their rules, you know, call CQSS for ARL sweepstakes contest. But the problem is the contesters don't follow that. I can tell you personally, I most always just say test, because from a contester point of view, you want to make that part of the transmission as short as possible. What's important is they hear my call sign and they know I'm in a contest. Quite often it's sort of the contest for that period of time. So quite often people will say, you know, CQ test or test WA7BNM, may give their call twice. But I get your point, and especially for more casual contesters, that would be helpful. I do know, like this last weekend, NAQP CW, North American QSO Party CW contest was on, and a lot of people say NAQP WA7BNM. So I will take that under consideration.
Comment? Yeah, I just wanted to mention that one of the possible problems of having something like that where people are sending a specific designator with their CQ other than test is on CW. That's just another thing that the RBN system has to negotiate. I mean, I know they recognize things like SS and some others, but or I'm way behind the technology, but it might be a problem if people are sending, something that RBN doesn't recognize and then they don't get spotted.
Well, it's a good point about the RBN. So I don't know if everybody on here is familiar with RBN. The RBN is sort of an amazing piece of technology that you have people spread around the world who listen across bandwidths of frequency and using software, since I'm not going to remember his call, I'm just going to say by a VE3, which can simultaneously decode 200 kilohertz of bandwidth. Like I said, amazing technology, and say, oh, here's WA7BNM. He's sending it 26 words per minute, and here's his signal strength, and here's the various nodes around the world that heard him. But to your point, that RBN system is designed to look for CQ or test, I believe. So I think if you said CQ NAQP, you'd be okay. If you just say NAQP, I'm not sure you would show up on the RBN, to your point. Other questions or comments?
Oh, and that's Reverse Beacon Network or reversebeacon.net.
Yeah, thank you.
If you're done with that screen share, you might lower that down.
So are we ready to go on to the 3830 scores? So 3830 scores roots are a long time ago, prior to my ever being involved in contesting, and sometime probably after I was a novice, but knew nothing that contests even existed. Contesters were looking for a way to sort of exchange their scores after a contest. And I think this started with the Yankee Clipper Contest Club, which is the big contest club in the New England area, and they would get on 3830 kilohertz on 75 meters afterwards and talk about, geez, I scored 217,000 points and had 586 QSOs and ran low power or whatever it was, and a little bit about what their experience was. And, because it was 75 meters, it worked pretty well in a New England area, East Coast type of thing. Some West Coast stations indeed contributed to that, but it would get more difficult to do so, especially if you had marginal 80-meter antenna, running low power, so forth. But that went on for a lot of years. So 3830 was the frequency on which they met and exchanged this. Then what happened is the internet came along. So the contest, CQcontest.com, which is a long-standing email reflector for contesting, exchanging of information or arguments, depending on what's going on, was started in February of 1992. And one of the first things people started doing was posting their scores on it. Hey, I'll just send out an email, said, hey, I had this many QSOs, multipliers, and here was my score, and maybe I did something else. Got no common formatting, anything like that. So it ended up getting enough of those that in January of 1996, they decided to spin off and have a separate reflector, email reflector for that, called 3830@contesting.com. So whose purpose was, that's where you're supposed to post your score instead of the CQ contest at contesting.com reflector. And so people started doing that. More people got on the internet, got more popular. And then what happened is you started getting people who voluntarily said, you know what, I'll summarize everybody's posting so we can see the list of claimed scores as one compiled list, by category and so forth. So people started doing that, but it was difficult because there was no common formatting. So I was on at that time, and sort of in the early times of this, and identified as a need, well, maybe what we should do is just use a little web form. You enter the information, and it will create an email that sends to the 3830@contesting.com reflector, so that it's in a standard format for those who are compiling these lists, make it much easier for them to do so. So I started doing that in, I have to see here, October 1999. When I did it first for the CQ Worldwide single sideband contest. And people liked the idea. And so, there was nothing forcing them to use this, just that it was of the common benefit to do so. So it became more and more use. Practically everybody did it. And then in April of 2002, I woke up to the fact, geez, people are voluntarily entering their score information rather than it just appearing out here on a list. Why don't I at least stuff it in a database? So I've got the information, let's put it in a database. So that was sort of the advent of having an online presence for doing this. So again, under my hornicopia.com URL, I had 3830 scores, and finally in 2013, I actually built the 3830 scores .com website, which I'll go to now. Okay. So here's the homepage of 3830scores.com. And the organization is down the left-hand side. There's a list of current contests. And that means essentially this week's contests. And then recent contests are contests that have occurred recently, but not this week. But you can still, they're still active contests in that you can still submit a log. You can still post your claim score. So again, these are claim scores. They haven't been log checked. Everybody's on the honor system. The value of this is everybody treats it with respect and says, I'm going to make the best effort to give the best information I can about this. Yeah, scores will get adjusted when they do log checking, but quite often it's been a long time between when a contest happens and when official results get published. So for that reason, 3830 scores has been quite popular. In fact, let's see, at the moment, there's a little over 800,000 score postings from the beginning, 125,000 in the last 12 months. And that's a really reflection of the popularity of weekly contests. So the CW Ops tests, for instance, literally produce 1,000 postings a week between the 4 editions of that during a week. And 169 countries use, hams in 169 countries use 3830scores.com. And there are about 215 active contests. Going back to the calendar for a second, I forgot to mention, it said there was 458 active contests on the calendar. And looking at the last 12 months, hams in 206 countries access the calendar. So it's become popular worldwide. So I'll show you what across the top are the summaries, and we'll look at that in a second. So you select the form on the left column. So I'm going to do the North American QSO Party, CW. And this is what a form looks like. So the form is only available once the contest starts. And it remains available at least usually 7 days after the log deadline. There are people who don't like to post their scores until after the deadline for submissions of logs. For one reason, they don't want people to know what category they're submitting in until it's too late for people to switch categories, that type of thing. And so anyway, leave it open 7 days beyond that, with a few exceptions. And those exceptions are The major contests like CQ Magazine's DX contests, they have 5-day log deadlines. ARL's contests, major contests, that have 7-day log deadlines. And for those, I try to leave the 3830 forms up for 30 days after the end of the contest. So the basic idea is you fill out your email address. You can click a box to say, send a copy to this email address of the result here. You need to fill out the call used. It's optional to fill out operator calls or station call. If if they're the same, there's no reason to fill these out. The application will automatically say the operator call and the station call were the same. If not, you can record them separately. There's essentially 255 characters available for operator calls, so there's a lot more area here. You can keep typing in the operator call sign for big multi-modules that have 20 operators in them, and you select the class. NAQPs only have a few classes: single op assisted, and multi-2. Select it from the drop-down box. Select the power, high power, low power, QRP. Then these are sort of informational, and they've evolved over the years. So SO2R is single op 2 radio, method popularized actually 10 to 20, more like 20 years ago, I think, for increasing the efficiency of operation. And essentially, you listen to one radio in one ear and you listen to the other radio in the other ear, one on one band, one on another. And while you're making a QSO on one radio, you're calling CQ on the other radio, and then you flip back and forth. So it takes lots of skill to do that. But these days, actually, quite a few people have developed the skill to do it. Some are really great at doing it. Some are okay at doing it. The most recent operating practice to increase this is called 2BSIQ, which is 2-band sequentially interleaved QSOs. I would credit Dan N6MJ, who I've known because he's lived in Southern California since he was a teenager and is just a preternatural contester. I mean, it's like his brain is wired for CW and can just operate amazingly. So what he does is the timing is you call CQ, you're working another guy, and you finish that QSO. Now you have another person on the other band, you're working them. So you're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, literally for 24 or 48 hours. So it's a mental stamina challenge. When you're on the air, you can hear people trying this that don't do very well, but I can tell you the people who are good at it, you just think they're sitting on one band with one radio, just working a pileup, when they're actually on 2 different bands, working 2 different pileups. For it to be really effective, you need to have a pileup on each band. So it works when you're DX. So when I used Dan N6MJ as an example, when he goes to the Cayman Islands as ZF1A, tends to have a pileup on multiple bands. And then recently we added for remote operation. And this is just really informational. With the popularity of people using remote sites to log into, either their own or these sites that you can rent, you can check that. So these are just information that shows up in the summary. And then we've added the ability to have a class overlay. Most contests don't. NAQPs recognize youth, which is 25 and under. Again, just informational. Op time, QTH, and club are all optional. So how many hours did you operate? Where are you located? And we really leave it up to people to decide, do you want to put your state in? Do you want to put your grid in? Is it a 4-character grid, a 6-character grid? Whatever you want to do. And then clubs is a list of clubs that have been predefined, and they're organized by continent. So we have a lot of North American ones, not many Asian. And if you're not on the list, you can just select other, and it comes up a little box. You can type your club name in here. NAQPs have teams. So in this case, you can say, geez, I was on the Boiled Owls 2 team when I submit, and then a summary that's customized to the contest. So NAQPs are 6 bands, 160 through 10 meters. You count QSOs and you count multipliers by band. So that's why there's a mult form here. And only thing you have to do is fill in the totals. It's helpful for others to be able to see how did you do with, what bands did you operate on? How'd you do on those bands? And then a total score. What's important to remember is this is not a spreadsheet. So it's not meant to be arithmetically QSOs times molds is going to equal total score. Now, in the case of NAQPs, that works because you only get 1 point per QSO and times the molds equals the score. But there are other contests where you get 2 points for a single sideband QSO and 3 points for a CW QSO. But we're not really interested in QSO points in most cases. We're interested in how many QSOs you made. So that's why that's recorded there. And I know I have discussions, especially with people who are new with, well, this doesn't make sense to me. What am I supposed to put in? And I say, no, if you wanted points, it would say QSO points. And then finally, a comment section. And you get to type whatever comment you want. It's pretty unlimited in what you put. Some people write long descriptions of their operating problems they had, what conditions were like. Some people put nothing. So that is really up to them. And what I found is that people are using 3830scores.com as sort of a history of their contesting activities. So they may put notes in the comments that maybe aren't all that interesting to other people to read, but is helpful for them when they want to look back at a contest. Oh, a top 20-meter beam died halfway through contest is why my 20-meter totals are lower, or whatever like that. So you fill this out, you click on submit score to the 3830 reflector. It sends out an email of this because the 3830@contesting.com still exists. So for compatibility with the past, it still does that. But the main thing it does is it puts it into the database and makes it immediately available, since I find NAQP, to show a summary. So the moment I hit submit, it's in the summary. So it gets updated instantly. So here's the summary of North American QSO Party that happened this last weekend. The default is to sort by class and then power to show all locations and all clubs. And so they're just alphabetical is why they're in this order. So the multi-2 shows first. High power isn't a category for NAQPs. Those will be check logs when they're submitted to the NCJ but 3830 allows you to select any of 3 powers. And then it's just by descending order of score. So you can see in single op, low power, N40GW, who used the 2-band sequentially interleaved QSO approach, had 1,537 QSOs in 10 hours. Operating time was 10 hours, 258 molts for 396,546 points. And his team was the Deep Dixie Contest Club Team Steamboat, and so on. So you just see him in descending order here. So I didn't look at the top, but it tells you how many. And then we had one person that collect the youth overlay. So they're called out. They exist up here in the single op LP, but they're also down here. Then QRP, then single op assisted. Again, we had some high powered entries that'll get turned into check logs. And then assisted low power and assisted QRP. Now, in the case of NAQPs, because there are teams, 3830 scores sum the team. So we can see for all the entries, we have the ACG Bama regulars number 2. We can have up to 5 members on a team in NAQPs. Here's their total score. Number 1 scored almost 1 million points, so forth. So it totals the team scores for you in this view. Now that's the default view. So people like to see other types of things. So you say, well, that's nice, but I'd like to see how people operated on bands. So this was scores, so I can do score breakdowns. So when I click on score breakdowns, it tells me the score, and then it tells me not only the totals like it did in the other view, but it tells me the total by band, Qs and moles. Again, the same kind of thing. Comments are, some people just like to read comments. So here it tells you this happens to be in chronological order, but you can do it in call sign order, and tells me the category and their score, and then shows whatever comments they made for those who made comments. So it gives you an easy way to read through the comments people have used. I'm not sure why, but some people just like to see the list of the calls that were in the contest. And then finally, you can do a compare score. So a compare score allows you to compare up to 5 different entries in a contest over time if you wanted. So they can all be in the same contest. So I'll just do this really fast. BNM, and this is CW, and I haven't entered mine yet, but let's do January, and I'll do myself again in January, and hope I operated. And if I click compare, I'll see, again, this could be other call signs, but I just chose myself in 2 different Januaries, January 21 and January 22. You know, I scored about twice as many points in 2022 as I did in 2021. Obviously not earth-shattering scores, but you can sort of see, geez, I had a lot more scores in 20 meters in January in 2021. But the big difference was the difference in QSOs on 15. So it gives a way to compare scores between different stations. They don't even have to be in the same category, or yourself over a period of time. So that's the idea behind the compare scores. And then finally, in the summary view, we've been defaulting to all locations. So this is a North American contest, so it's probably not so. Let's look at IOTA contest. I've got people in the way of my, let me see. Here, I'm going to go a different way. So we'll come back to that. But so contest summaries are this view for all contests over the years. So I'm going to go down to IOTA, and when I click on it, it shows me all the years I have scores for in the database. And if I click scores, it's the view you've been seeing. I have 242 scores listed in 2022 for all locations. But I can say, in this case, because it's only divvied up into island and the world, I'll look to see what do we have for islands. So here's all the people that operated from islands in the IOTA contest. So that's islands on the air. Probably not so interesting because, yeah, let's do a different one. That's more interesting than IOTA. So let's go up to CQ. So here's CQ Worldwide, sideband scores. In 2021, we had 1,451 postings, and these are going to be from all over the world. So now, if I just wanted to see USA, I can click on USA, and I can see I had 922 postings from USA. Or I can say, I want to see just Northern Europe, because I'm in Northern Europe and I really want to see how other people in Northern Europe did. So it shows all the postings for that area. So again, for all of this. Or you can say, well, I only want to see people from my club. So I'll go down here, Southern California Contest Club, and select that and say go. And here's everybody in the SCCC who submitted a score for that contest. So that's the idea. So these are all available under contest summaries for all the ones that are available. Activity trackers are a way to see what's going on with your club. And I'll just again go here. So this is ordered by date and time, so it's sort of chronological. So we see a lot of CW Ops weekly contest activity. I can select the default is past 30 days. I can do 60, 90, 6 months, or a year. I can order by call sign. I'd rather do that. So I see A2IL was quite active. And if I want, I can do it by contest. So they group by contest. So here was everybody in the last 30 days and what contest they occurred in. And then finally, I'll just touch on FAQ is up here. A couple of questions I always get asked is, how do I make a correction? And how do I get listed on the drop-down list of contest clubs? So I'll answer the last first. It's basically by demonstrating that members of your club have been posting 23830 scores and manually putting in their club name. Be honest, I think we have too many North American clubs. I'd like to see more from other parts of the world. We're getting to the point where, you know, it's like the East Farmdale Studio City Contest Club. It has 3 members. You know, I'm not sure that was the intent of this. And my concern is the drop-down list just gets so long that people make mistakes and when they click off of it. So let's go back to how to make a correction. So the default here is new submission up here at the top. But if you say correct previous submission, all you have, all you get is the submitter's email address and the call used. And then when you submit that, it shows you the submission in the editable form again. And you can edit whatever you want in it to make the corrections, and you submit it as a correction. No correction is done automatically. They all generate an email to me. I review them and I do a manual update. I say in the confirmation page for that, allow 24 hours, but I see people make a correction and 2 minutes later they make another correction, and 2 minutes later they make the correction again because they expect to see it happen instantly. But just to be sure people aren't playing games, or that they're really correcting something they should be correcting. Because sometimes people just don't understand the contest, especially if they're a newbie, and try to make a correction that doesn't make sense. And so I end up with an email communication to them. So that is it. Preferences is the last thing I'll talk about. In preferences, oh, come on. So there's a lot of information on that contest posting, score posting form. That's the same every time if you use this a lot. So the preferences allows you to pre-enter your email, the call you normally use, the station call you normally use, your QTH if you'd like, your club, and the default comments. Like if you want to put in a description of your equipment and antennas, you could put them in here. You can fill in as few of these as you want. You save them. Again, it saves it to a cookie in the browser on the computer you're doing this on. So when you bring up that form, it'll already fill out this information. It's editable, so if you need to change it, you can. So in the comments, you can say, oh, I already got my equipment and antenna description in. Now I'm just going to type the rest of my comments in. Or, geez, I used a different call this time, so I'm going to change that to whatever I used. So it establishes the defaults that will come up in the form and save you some typing. So that's 3830scores.com. Questions?
Bruce, Marty, and 6VI. First,
Marty.
thank you very much for giving the presentation. And for those who don't know, Bruce was inducted some years ago into the CQ Contest Hall of Fame for his significant efforts in building and maintaining all this. Bruce, my question is, how much time per month do you spend working on this?
Quite a bit. So the calendar probably is the most time consuming. So the calendar, what I didn't say about the calendar was, so perpetuals are known in advance. For contests that aren't perpetual, I do, the calendar is complete 2 months out. So for instance, earlier this week, I completed through the end of October. So that means all the contests there are on the calendar through the October 2022. November will be partly there. All the perpetuals will be there and any I've already entered, but it may not be complete. And the reason for that is it's an impossible task to do every month of the year, every month. So the 2 months is really driven by the fact the ARL uses the calendar as their resource for the contest corral that's published in QST every month. And so I provide them with the raw data and then they format it the way they like to do it. And that's due by the 5th of the month for 2 months out. So on the 5th of August, the calendar for October was due. So that sort of drives me to get October done. And the problem is, it's like the 80-20 rule, but this is probably 95-5 rule. Most of them are straightforward. Sponsors update their websites with information. And then we have the ones who don't ever seem to update their web rules with the latest information. Even in the week of the contest, they still haven't updated, but yes, they're still having the contest. Then they sort of go, oh yeah, I haven't updated those. Now, obviously that's not the major contest, but this is a calendar of everything. So that takes time to do. So, I don't count the hours because it would be depressing, but the calendar takes a lot of time. 3830 scores is really a matter of just configuring the forms for the next week's contest. Probably takes about 30 minutes to do each time. The information comes from the contest calendar, so there's really not much there unless it's a brand new contest and I have to sort of create all the basic information associated with that contest.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for all the work you do. I know contests around the world are very appreciative.
Yeah, if I could pipe in with my thanks too, Bruce. There were things I didn't even realize were in both of those tools that you've taught me tonight. So thank you for that.
I'm glad you learned something.
And it's also fun to just sometimes plug my call sign into the 3830 score box in the upper right-hand corner and remember what I've been doing for years.
So thank you for mentioning that because I failed to do that.
Lost weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent talk. It comes across as the Wikipedia of contesting.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to this really quick. Oh, I keep getting this window. So what Anthony was referring to, come on, is over here. I can't point to it because everybody's picture's over here. Can I move this? Yes. So over here is a call search. So I can type, what was your call, Anthony?
Kilo 8 Zulu Tango.
Kilo 8 Zulu Tango. I can type that in. I click search. It takes a couple of seconds. And there are all of his entries over the years in 3830. So he can go back and reminisce.
And the cool thing is it's not just, it's tied to the call sign you put in. So if I put myself in, I can see that I was at K3LR or I was, in Canada for some field day in 2016, stuff like that. So it's even cooler than it's being portrayed right now. Oh, there you go. You got KO, whatever.
The KO8 HIO was an example where you were an operator. We're back in 2003.
That was for the Ohio Bicentennial. And by the way, Bruce, I'd like to thank you for all the work you do. And by the way, there's even more he does in the background. He also is involved in the scoring of a couple other online things, including the State QSO Party Challenge and the CWTs and all that. So thank you for all the work you do. It's just tremendous.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And also thank you for letting me do the little presentation about you for the QSO Today last fall.
Oh, sure. Any other questions, suggestions?
Well, maybe it's sort of a touchy subject, but interesting that you mentioned, say, in the NAQP where there's no high power category, people nonetheless, submit their scores. I just wonder, is someday that going to be considered an impetus to just enter high power?
I doubt it.
So, yeah, that was just I just wondered about that. I mean, it's like at field day too. The ARRL changed it to 100 watts, but people still wanted to run their kilowatt, which, I guess if I had a kilowatt, I'd want to do that too.
Well, maybe the answer there is you have all your QSO and multi-band data and your score is 0.
Yeah, maybe. But then again, what that does is cross Bruce back into the realm of having to make those sorts of decisions where he's just the caretaker of all this information. So,
yeah. So to be honest, the philosophy of 3830 scores has been to always provide the option of 3 power categories, regardless of whether the contest supports 3 power categories. I'll give you an example. Up until 2022, the ARRL didn't recognize single band entries in DX contests at any power levels. It was just everything was 1 power level, which meant it was high power. I'm a low power contester. I've hardly ever used an amplifier. I own an amplifier that's sitting underneath my desk somewhere that I bought for the Bouvet de-expedition that didn't happen. And so at least I have it when they go back. I'm too old to risk missing an all-time new one. But anyway, I've always allowed all 3 power levels so that you could say the power level you used, even if the contest sponsor elected not to recognize that. And in the case of the NAQPs, you would end up as a check log even. And never say never, because the NAQPs resisted allowing assisted for forever, but started this year, and as you can see, it's an extremely popular category.
yeah, and once again, I realize that I'm talking with a limited set of a limited information set. So thank you for that, Bruce.
Sure.
Yeah, and those additional, maybe not officially recognized categories allow people to compare their own station performance and operator performance from time to over time, and to compare with other similar stations. They may both want to run high power. Maybe they're not going to send in a log, but at least they can, do a head-to-head comparison. And that's part of what people like to do with contesting.
Right.
Well, and the other positive is that it gives people an opportunity to be truthful about how much power they were running. But that's an excellent point. It's like having a database, and the more information you have in the database, the more correlations you can make, and the more results you can pull out of that information. So,
yeah, and again, we want people to be honest about what they post, so people make corrections all the time. They make corrections about 1 QSO differences. So, I don't, yes, it's work for me because I do it manually, but actually I like that they do that, because it means they're paying attention and they want to get it right. And so that means that's a benefit to everybody to be able to say, I trust this to a certain degree. It's not perfect. Probably 1 in 20,000 postings are bogus. K5ZD has had some postings made under his call that weren't done by him, that we had to remove. We have some other information in the database that helps us decide those. But generally, people are pretty well behaved.
Bruce, I had a question about the warning sometimes when the score doesn't calculate properly. I noticed on some contests that if you make a mistake posting it, it'll give you a warning. On other contests, it does not. What's involved in that process?
Well, it's for a few contests that have simple formulas, also generally known as every QSO counts the same number of points, and there's a multiplier. I implemented a score check, but it's really a pretty small number, maybe 10 or so, maybe 20. And in that case, it's sort of doing a double check on it. So, you know, if you haven't removed the dupes from the score calculation, it'll throw it off and say, hey, this, you know, your score here isn't equal to QSO points times multipliers type of thing. So, you know, I sort of implemented it as a check on a few things. I don't even really remember these days which ones they are, but it's fairly limited.
I know it's that one of them is NAQP because when I entered my score, it gave me a warning and I went back and looked and N1MM had wrongly handled 2 of the contacts.
Yeah, well, what happens in N1MM particularly is they've chosen to break the multipliers into something called sections and then M2. So sections are really states and provinces, and M2 are countries outside of the US and Canada, which count as multipliers within North America. And you have to add those together to get the multipliers. You know, it's just how N1MM chose to do things.
Yeah, and it messed up the calculation on 2 of my DX contacts in that.
Yeah.
Calculate them right.
Other thoughts?
Well, I just want to reiterate, thank you very, very much for all of this.
Sure.
This has been a good presentation. Thank you very much, Bruce.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Okay. Throw it out there one more time for hands, questions. Harry, what we got in chat? Are we okay there?
Chat is nice and quiet.
Okay. Again, it's been a good presentation. Appreciate it very much. And Bruce, if you could send your slides our direction, we'll include that with the video and stuff for those later on. And right now we'll see 73s, everybody. Oh,
Thank you all for coming.
want to make an announcement. We have chosen not to give, no, we're not going to give our Thursday presentation tomorrow. We're skipping tomorrow. Hopefully everybody got the word, but if you didn't, we're not going to be here tomorrow. 73s, everyone.
Rest your voice, Dan. 7-3s, everybody.
Thanks again, all.